I'm Anne-Marie Cheney, a author and pattern designer, and you can see by the quilt behind me that I am making half square triangles today. I am making a ton of them, not just one at a time, like here's just one. I want to show you a shortcut so that we can make them 8 at a time for quilt patterns like this where you need a whole bunch. So let's go over to the cutting table. Okay, now to get started, I want to show you some of the supplies we're starting off with here for making the half square triangles 8 at a time. We need to start with 2 squares that are the same size. And if you're referencing a pattern, you need to see what size your half square triangles are supposed to be squared up to in the end. And then there's some math you need to do. So make sure you check your pattern to make sure you know what size you need. And I'll provide the equation below in the comment section. But we'll start off with these 2 squares. One of them we can leave blank, and on the other one we need to take a marking pen and draw a diagonal line across both diagonals of the square. Then you can take your 2 squares and place them right sides together. The other tools I have here at my cutting table are a rotating cutting mat that we'll use when we square these up in the end, a rotary cutter, and then I have a longer ruler that will be able to reach across the block in all directions, and then a half square triangle ruler. But for now, once we put our squares right sides together, we're ready to head to the sewing machine. Okay, so you can see here what I've done is stitched a 1/4 inch away from the line that we drew on both sides of that line. And we'll need to do that for the first diagonal and for the second diagonal. So let me just run that here on the second diagonal for you. And then we'll turn the square around. We've sewn on the right side, and we'll just finish off on the left. And that's it. Now we can head back to the cutting table after we've sewn 4 different lines, but all of them a 1/4 inch away from the diagonals that we drew. We can head to the cutting table to cut them apart. Okay, to get started, we're going to cut our squares that we've sewn together into our 8 half square triangles. So to do this, you're going to need a long ruler that will fit across the length of the diagonal. But first we're going to do the horizontal and the vertical cuts first. Now there's no drawn lines here, so you just kind of have to line up things using your ruler. And what we're aiming to do is to take our rotary cutter and we're going to cut through the intersections of the lines that we sew and what we draw. So all of those intersection points should be intersecting with your ruler and make your ruler parallel with the squares. So you take your rotary cutter. First we're going to cut one intersection there, then we'll turn our rotating mat 90 degrees and do the same in the other direction through those intersections. So now you've cut that big square into 4 separate squares. Let's keep those lined up. And now that you have 4 separate squares, we can just cut on the diagonal. So this time we're going to cut on the purple diagonal line that we drew. We'll do that on the first diagonal, and then again on the second diagonal. So now you can see we've cut all our pieces into 8 separate half square triangles. When you open them up, There's the half square triangle. Now at this point in time, I usually clear all the extra pieces aside for squaring up. And in this case, I'm going to use the Quilt in a Day ruler. This comes in two different sizes. This is the bigger one, the 9.5 inch half square triangle ruler, and then there's also a 6 or 6.5 inch one. And for this pattern, I know that from these size half square triangles, we want our unfinished size of our blocks to be 4.5 inches unfinished, which will then end up being 4-inch finished blocks. So what we do is we take this 4.5 inch line and you'll place that on the stitching. Line it up. And then we can go ahead and remove the excess fabric that's along the left and the side. Of course, I'm left-handed, so you'll need to have this flipped around if you're right-handed. But we can remove the excess with our rotary cutter. And now our block is trimmed to size. So this is a 4.5 inch block. At this point in time, we can remove the dog ears. Oop. And we can press. And you would do that for all of the rest of the units that you cut, and then you're ready to sew them together into blocks. I hope you found this helpful, and you can use this technique anywhere you have patterns that use half square triangles. So that is how to make 8 half square triangles at a time. If you're looking for a pattern that uses that technique, the quilt behind me is called the Old Mohawk quilt pattern, and it uses that same technique to put together the blocks in the quilt. If you're looking for other inspiration, please head to AnnMarieChaney.com for more projects, patterns, and tutorials. Bye!